I would now like to invite Professor Eran Segal from Mohammed bin Zayed University of AI to describe his research. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody, and thank you very much for the invitation, and grateful for the award that we received. This proposal is joint with three of my colleagues at MBZ UAI, Professor Eric Xing, Professor Le Song, and Professor Shangsung Ma. And our idea is about generating foundation models, multimodal foundation models for working towards building holistic models of human health. And the idea that we had for this is now the combination that we finally, I believe, have the right data and also the right AI tools that we can work towards this. And motivating our work is actually the publication of the Human Genome Project, which, as you know, the first draft was published in the year 2000. And it really was transformative in the field of healthcare, medicine, and biology, because it took us from knowing just a handful of genes involved in just a few diseases into where we are now, where we know for virtually every disease hundreds, if not thousands, of genetic variants, and that has really been helpful also in reducing the cost of drug development by about 50%. But our genome is just what we're born with, and so the genome does not take into account everything that happens to us throughout our life, our lifestyle, nutrition, exercise, and so on. And for that reason, we developed what we call moving from the Human Genome Project to the Human Phenotype Project, where the idea is to measure the genome, but also everything else that we can. And so we developed and profiled a cohort which is still not yet the largest, but it's the most deeply phenotyped cohort. And so participants, before they come on site to the clinic, they upload their electronic health records. They fill out hundreds of questionnaires about medical background, family history of disease. So we know all of their diagnoses, indications, medications, and historical blood tests. Then they come on site and do a bunch of physiological and clinical evaluations, and also state-of-the-art multi-omic measurements. And so these include various body measures, gait analysis, ECG. We record voice that has correlates to disease, various imaging modalities like DEXA that looks at full body composition and bone density, high-resolution images of the retina, the only non-invasive way in which we can look at blood vessels, also for cardiovascular health, ultrasound to look at fat in the liver and the carotids. And then the multi-omics that we do include the human genome, looking at genetics, but also looking at the microbiome, the collective bacteria that live within us, metabolomics that looks at thousands of different small molecules in the blood, proteomics looks at protein levels, RNA sequencing at RNA levels, and we developed a novel immune assay that in one experiment can tell the entire infectious history of a person. People go home with various body sensors to track sleep, to track continuously glucose levels of people every 15 minutes, smartwatches to track physical activity. They log their diet, medication, and physical activity. And we also biobank samples which we can go back to and apply assays that don't even exist today, sometimes in the future. And so all of this we collected on over 14,000 people to date. This cohort is longitudinal. Every 2 years we reprofile people. Collectively, we profile about 17 different systems of the body. This cohort has about 40 different diseases represented, pretty much the representation in the general population, a lot of cardiometabolic health diseases which are very prevalent, also various medical conditions, and we're now in the process of expanding this cohort from 14,000 to the next milestone of 100,000 participants, which we hope to achieve also by expanding to other countries. We just opened a clinic in Japan, and very soon, hopefully in the next month or two, we'll be opening a clinic here in Abu Dhabi to do this same profiling. We've been working on this data quite a lot and achieved multiple different discoveries that we've been publishing in various scientific journals. In the short time that I have, I just want to share a few of the insights and then tell you about what we hope to achieve in this proposal. So one of the areas we've been looking at is longevity, looking at human aging by developing models of what we call biological age as distinct from the actual chronological age of a person. So for example, we took the data that we have on small molecules in the blood, what's called metabolomics, and we developed a machine learning algorithm that predicts the actual chronological age of a person just by looking at the profile of these small molecules in the blood. And you can see here where every dot is a person, the x-axis is the chronological age, that the y-axis predicted by the model actually fits quite nicely the actual age of a person, but the predictions are not perfect. There are many deviations. People at the top represent individuals where when the model looks at their metabolite profile, they actually look like somebody who's older. And conversely, individuals at the bottom, when the model looks at their metabolite profiles, they actually look like somebody who's younger. So you could say that at least according to this metabolomic age, people at the top have an accelerated aging. They look like somebody who's older, and conversely, people at the bottom seem to be younger than their actual age. And indeed, we can see that even though we only looked at the metabolite profile of people, people at the top are indeed in worse clinical condition. They, by various measures not used to train the model, are in worse condition. They have higher BMI, higher triglycerides, hemoglobin A1C, blood pressure, cholesterol, and liver enzymes. So these types of models allow us to actually detect biological age of a person and identify actually specifically body systems and body organs where there are issues and need to be attended to. Another example is using the RNA data that we collect. We can also build these types of models, and similarly for the retina scans, we can see people who age faster or slower. One of the surprising findings is that actually the various body systems, the age of their biological age is pretty much independent. They're not correlated to each other, which means that people who are aging faster in one body system are not necessarily deteriorating or aging faster in another system. And so these models allow us to identify and pinpoint specific body organs and therefore specific diseases that people are at risk of developing. And so in this proposal, we propose to take all of the data that we collect, about 30 or 40 different data modalities, and integrate them together, align them together into more unified AI models for predicting health of a person. An example of one model that we recently developed is just looking at the continuous glucose monitoring data. So these are the body sensors that we put on people after they visit the clinic for 2 weeks, measuring their glucose levels every 15 minutes. And so here we adapted a very similar framework to what is used in large language models that power applications like ChatGPT, but applying them now to predict glucose levels of participants. So here, the idea is that the way large language models are trained, they're trained to look at a body of text and then predict the next word in a sentence and so on and so forth. And so here, we're using the same approach, but looking at the past historical glucose levels of a person and predicting the next glucose level. And so by that, you can look at the historical continuous glucose monitoring data of a person and then generate, because this is a generative AI model, generate realistic health trajectories, glucose trajectories of a person that actually match quite well actual real data. But the real important aspect of this model is that much like in large language models, you don't really care only about predicting the next word, but you care about the representation to power applications like translation or chat. Here, we use the representations to show that they're actually very useful at predicting which individuals who are pre-diabetic today will develop diabetes 10 years into the future. So if you look at the graph on the right, this is the standard of care today, looking at hemoglobin A1C, the average of glucose levels in the past 3 months. You can see that it has zero predictive power, looking 10 years into the future on who has prediabetes today and will develop diabetes in the future. Whereas if we take the foundation model that we trained and use its representations, and we look at the top versus bottom quartile, we can see a very nice separation of identifying today which individuals will develop diabetes 10 years into the future and which, therefore, pre-diabetic individuals with lifestyle and dietary interventions we need to treat today in order to prevent and avoid diabetes in the future. And so this is an example of just one model applied to one type of data. And the idea of our proposal here is now to take the 30 different data modalities that we have, put them on a similar timeline, and then align them together, much like you align text and images, also in various websites that you're familiar with, but now put them on a timeline and also use this idea of predicting not the next word, but now predicting the next medical event, which can be a blood test, it can be a diagnosis, it can be a medication that people are taking. And when we frame the problem this way, we actually have about 20 million data points per person times 14,000 individuals that we have now times multiple visits per person. So that already gives us hundreds of billions of data points in order to train. And this model, if successful, will not only be able to predict the health trajectories of people, but also simulate the effect of various interventions, like what would happen if I would change my diet or exercise, or if I took medications, what effect would that have on my, say, cholesterol levels, sleep quality, or body weight, and so on and so forth. And so, as I mentioned, we're now both developing these multimodal models now that we finally have both the data, then the compute power, and also the technology, the AI models to apply to them, but also expanding the cohort on these multiple different dimensions. And I believe that it's really this application of these types of models to this very high-resolution phenotypic data that will allow us to reach the next generation of precision AI models for precision medicine. Thank you very much.